Good evening. My name is Nancy Eddy. I'm moderator for tonight's candidates forum. Make sure you've all turned off your cell phones if you haven't done that already. I always need reminding when I go to something. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Amherst, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this candidates night and to introduce this year's townwide office candidates for seats on the school committee, library trustee, Oliver Smith Will elector, town meeting moderator, and the Amherst Redevelopment Authority. All positions are uncontested this year, although there is one write-in candidate that we know of for the Jones Library trustee. Candidates Night is one of many voter services that the League performs throughout the year, including we register voters, we speak out on policies, we advocate for an informed democracy. But the League is a nonpartisan organization. We were originally founded in 1920 to promote citizen participation in government through voter service and citizen information activities. We never support a candidate, and we never support a specific political party. But we do take and adopt positions and take action on public policy questions after membership study and agreement on issues. League membership is open to all women and men, and we're happy to have you as members as long as you're of voting age. Our format tonight, we have two panels. The first panel features candidates for individuals being elected to single positions, not on a board. The second panel includes candidates who will be elected to boards. Our format is to allow candidates equal opportunity to inform voters of their positions on important issues relative to the office they represent. And even though there are not contests for elections this year, I think it's important for voters to understand what people stand for and what they think the opportunities that they seek to, what positions they will take if they are elected. Candidates will make a 3-minute opening statement and respond to one or more questions solicited from League members and from the audience here tonight. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to reply to each question posed. Seated to my left, your right if you're looking at me, are Maya Lilia and Phyllis Lair, who've been collecting questions from the audience. If you have any other questions as things go along tonight, raise your hand and someone will come and collect a question from you. Seated in front are our timekeepers, Martha Hanner and Kathy Campbell, who will alert candidates at 3 intervals: when they have 1 minute remaining, when they have 30 seconds remaining, and stop when the time is up. Tonight's forum is being taped by Amherst Media for later broadcast on Channel 17. So let's begin with our first panel. We have 3 people. For the elector for the Oliver Smith Will, John Kuhl; for town meeting moderator, James Pistrang; and for Amherst Redevelopment Authority, Margaret Roberts. We'll start with 3-minute opening statements and then we'll respond to questions. So Mr. Cole, you come up first with an opening statement.
Good evening, and be patient, there'll be seating for everyone. I am, once again, a candidate for the position of elector to the Oliver Smith Will, and this gives me an opportunity to explain the will and what the elector does. The will was established by a successful Hatfield farmer who died in 1845 and bequeathed a trust of $400,000, a princely sum in those days, and that $400,000 has enabled Smith Charities, the administrators of that will, to give out over $9 million since. And there you have the miracle of compound interest and lots of other things. The gifts are made to tradespersons, that is, a young person who's 19 years of age or between 19 and 21 who's going into the trades, either trade school or apprenticing to a person in the trades. Nurses in a similar fashion, widows who have dependent children under the age of 18, and to brides. And these are all small amounts, relatively. The basic gift to tradespeople and nurses is $600. There's a supplementary gift at the end of their training that at one time was as high as $800, and I believe currently is running at about $300, and I'll explain why as I go on. The other magic from the foresight of this man is that the fund's money is established by local mortgages. That is, we of the Smith Charities extend mortgages to people who are buying property locally. We have fairly strict requirements, but we are restricted to the same, approximately the same interest rates as all the other lending institutions. Consequently, the supplementary gift amount has gone down. My time is nearly up, and if in any questions people would like to know what the elector actually does, I'd be happy to go into that.
Thank you. Mr. Pistrang, would you make your opening statement?
I will. I don't think I'll be using up my whole 3 minutes. Again, my name is Jim Pistrang. I am running for moderator, and thanks to everybody for coming. New England Town Meeting is participatory democracy at its best. It encourages the participation and engagement of a large number of citizens, fosters community, and goes against the national trend of blaming politicians and governments for our trouble. When we are the government, we take responsibility for the important decisions that affect our town. Town meeting must follow rules, standards, and our traditions in order to operate effectively, and I believe that I have the skills and the expertise required to guide town meeting in a clear, nonpartisan, and effective manner. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Roberts, would you make your opening statement?
I'm Margaret Roberts, or Peggy to most people, and I have great respect for the Amherst Redevelopment Authority. Way back when I was on the original Redevelopment Authority and was on it during the development of Boltwood Walk, I know that the Redevelopment Authority can do amazing things that would not be done otherwise. It's hard to remember way back, if you were here, the old school buildings that were deserted, the wooden buildings that were in very bad shape, the muddy places that we found to park back there. And now it's hard to imagine downtown without the Bank Center and Whalen Apartments, Clark House, Webster House, the shops around the improved parking. And I'd like you to understand a little bit about redevelopment as done by a redevelopment authority. They work in areas that need help. They can make things happen that wouldn't happen otherwise. They usually deal with more than one piece of property. They require public input, which is one of the wonderful things about working with a redevelopment authority. They really listen and gain information from the community that is going to be seen then at the other end as something for the community. It's a quasi-municipal agency, just like the Housing Authority. We have 5 members, 4 are elected by the town at election, and 1 is appointed by the state. Let's see, what else do I need to cover? The AR can receive grants and other contributions from federal government, other sources, and it can exercise eminent domain and has to make relocation payments for anyone that is displaced, individuals or businesses. Experience on the ARA has been an education in the complex process of redevelopment, including urban planning, architecture, marketing, landscaping, outdoor lighting, business negotiations, legal agreements, handicap accessibility. But the part that I care most about is public participation. The best projects grow from the community rather than the advocacy of a few.
Thank you. We'll now take questions posed to the candidates for each position, and we'll go in reverse order, just to give Peggy the first shot this time. The question has been posed, what are your views on the Kendrick Park project and the potential involvement of the Redevelopment Authority?
Actually, I chaired that Kendrick Park plan and feel very strongly that it was a very interesting attempt to connect the north part of downtown with a place that had kind of a special feel. The plan includes a little something for everybody. It's about 3 acres, and we couldn't put everything in, but there were some lovely ideas.
Thank you. Mr. Pistrang, you're up. As moderator, what do you believe will be the greatest challenges during town meeting debates, and how would you try to meet those?
Okay. I think the challenge mostly comes with the more complex issues facing town meetings. So probably the greatest challenges will involve zoning regulations that are put forward and some portions of the budget. How to meet those challenges? The best way is to really push for education of town meeting members and really encourage them to read materials ahead of time, try and go to the precinct meetings ahead of time and understand what's happening at town meeting before they get there.
Thank you. Mr. Cool, for the Oliver Smith will, how have the number of applicants changed over the several years since you've taken on the role of elector?
Very interesting. This past year, there was $933 paid to residents of Amherst. And I don't know the breakdown of brides, tradespeople, what have you. But, oh yes, I'm sorry, I do know. That was all to widows' benefits. So there were no brides and no tradespeople and no nurses. Now this reflects something in terms of people are not indeed paying attention to some of the opportunities in the trades and nursing, because of course, as we all know, it costs a great deal to get a master's degree and then serve hamburgers, whereas your plumber gets paid regularly. So perhaps people are overlooking a possibility there. And the other reason that the demographics change is the requirement for a bride is that she must be a first-time bride and must have resided for 3 years in the eligible community for which she is applying and must plan to be married in that community.
Thank you. Mr. Cool will give you a second question. How does the makeup of the Board of Electors compare with that of the applicants in terms of diversity? And do you feel that is important?
I do. It is important, and I think it compares favorably because, you see, geography is the main determiner. That is, there are 9 towns that are eligible under the will. That's Hatfield and the 8 towns that are approximately, if you discount the river, approximate to Hatfield. And so there are people on that, there are members of the electors who have been there for many, many years. They are involved in agriculture, they are in the trades themselves, so on and so forth. I might indeed be the odd person out in terms of not being in the trades, but of course I come from a business background.
Thank you. Mr. Pistrang, as moderator, how will you choose who to appoint to the Finance Committee? Do you seek to promote diversity? Would you seek to promote diversity of opinions? Do you consider some perspectives too political and hence not helpful?
It's a good question. The role of the Finance Committee is to study the financial implications of all warrant articles and motions and recommend to town meeting a prudent and fiscally responsible course of action. That could mean a lot of different things, and that doesn't really take into account political views of the Finance Committee. The qualities that I would look for are certainly an understanding of town finances, the ability to work well with others, and the ability to communicate effectively. I would also be looking for candidates or people interested in the Finance Committee who don't have a specific political agenda. I think that would be disruptive and wouldn't lead to a well-working Finance Committee.
Thank you. Peggy, what characteristics would you look for in the process of choosing Redeva ARA projects?
I think I am most interested actually in the center of town. I care very much about it. I think the village centers should be developed. I think one of the qualities that is really valuable in a town is that there's a feeling of community. I think you should be able to go for goods and services with people that you recognize, meet your neighbors. And it should be something that, well, it has to be something that wouldn't probably happen otherwise. Would be more complicated than a developer would do. And a developer would be looking for money rather than a real fit and service aspect for the community.
Second question, Mrs. Roberts, is somewhat similar. What is your attitude toward commercial development in Amherst?
I think that we need a critical amount to keep people able to get the goods and services they need. It's hard these days with volume so important. I mean, the big box stores, you know, can keep prices low. Parking is a big issue, but we definitely need to have more businesses downtown. The taxes are, of course, very important to the town also.
Thank you. That, in fact, concludes the first part of our evening tonight. So I want to thank each of the three candidates. We'll take a 5-minute break and invite the remaining three candidates to come forward.
No tar and feathers.
Thank you. We're now ready to move on to our second panel. These are people who are running for positions on boards or committees rather than for a single position. We have two candidates for the school committee. There are two openings on the school committee. Richard Hood and Kathleen Trapphagen, and for library trustee, Robert Pam. Candidates will now each make their 3-minute opening statements and then respond to audience questions. And remember, if you do have a question you want answered, raise your hand. Someone will come and pick it up. Since there are no contested seats, we are not including closing statements this year, but we will hopefully provide more time for questions. Mr. Hood, would you start your opening statement?
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this event and for all the work they do on our behalf, and to Amherst Media for broadcasting this and many other public meetings during the year. When I was elected 3 years ago, I fully expected to be working with a newly appointed superintendent on things I said were my priorities, including better communication, financial transparency, issues involving race and class in schools, and helping in any way I could to implement the district goals. Instead, the superintendent left just 3 weeks before the March 2010 election. My first school committee meeting was the day after the election, March 24th, at which Maria Garrick was once again acting as interim superintendent. For some time, I started work on things I wanted to accomplish, but that changed in early July when the Regional School Committee reorganized and Farshid Hajir, the presiding chair, decided to resign. I ended up becoming chair of the committee. From then on, responsibilities as chair took all of my time. While I worked on some of my priorities, other major items took over, especially the superintendent search. That search was extremely tough and divisive. Overseeing that process in what seemed like such a toxic environment was a challenge. On February 6, 2011, Super Bowl Sunday, the committee voted to appoint Maria Garrick after 4 ballots. I am pleased to have led the committee through this process and to have done my best to bring back some level of calm to the committee. The most important responsibility a school committee has is to choose a superintendent. Not unlike a board of directors choosing a CEO of an organization or a corporation. Institutions are not great because of their boards. They are great because they have a great leader as CEO, with great management and staff that such a leader inspires to new heights. Once this choice was made, we returned to a level of stability, which is needed to get things done. Stability does not mean staying where we are. On the contrary, stability means that people in charge are around long enough to affect change and to have the effectiveness of that change be measured. Challenges we face today include reaching out to help low-income kids succeed. Our low-income elementary school population has increased from 26% to over 39% in the past 10 years. Dealing with inconsistencies in how we deliver classroom instruction from school to school and from classroom to classroom. Dealing with properly differentiating instruction, both for kids who need extra help and for kids who need extra challenge. Effectively measuring whether what we're doing is working or not. The challenge of helping low-income kids is close to my heart. I was born lucky on the high end of an uneven playing field. I know that many kids are not born with such luck and that they deserve as level a playing field as we can possibly give them. Public schools should be the place where any child can succeed, regardless of income, race, gender, country of origin, disability, or any other characteristic that is part of being human. I will try to do my best to help make that happen in the Amherst schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Triphagen, would you make your opening statement, please?
Thanks, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for having this forum. Thanks for having me, and thanks to all of you for coming and spending some time learning about us. This is nice to have since we don't have a contested election. There's not that many places to meet a lot of people and talk about the school. So I'm running for school committee. I have 3 children in the Fort River School, a 6th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 1st grader. And I stepped up to have a voice at the table because I deeply believe that the schools are one of the most important institutions in our community, and that all of us in our community, whether or not we happen to have children in the schools or be going to the schools at this moment, have a role to play in keeping the Amherst schools excellent. And I do believe Amherst schools are excellent. I have 4 goals, and it's interesting because Rich had goals too before he got elected, so who knows what's going to happen if I'm going to be able to work on them directly. But I think first is that I do want to help figure out new and broader ways for community to get involved in the schools. And that's really defined very broadly, whether that means what do our institutions of higher education, what is their role in our schools and how do they contribute, all sorts of different stakeholders, both nonprofit, private sector, et cetera. The second is to help be in a leadership position and create policy around a very challenging work that the school is doing around integrating the Common Core state standards, and then upcoming will be science standards that are expected to come out this spring. And that is actually going to have implications for what our children learn K through 12, what happens in the classroom and how they're assessed, how we decide what they should know at which point, and how we decide whether they know it. And that is going to be a major challenge for Amherst, as for all schools. The third is around the strong belief that I have that despite a clear focus on the core academics, which is right and should happen, and every child should be proficient and strong, I truly believe that our schools need to comprehensively educate all of our children. Our children need time to be curious, to play, to be creative, to learn how to think critically, to problem solve, to learn how to be a learner, to learn why they love learning, and to leave our schools as people who know that they will be learners for life because they love it. And that's really one of my key beliefs, and I want our budget and policy decisions to reflect that comprehensive view. And then lastly, I want to support teachers who are doing a very hard job. That's it.
Thank you. Now we move to the library trustee. Robert Pam, an opening statement.
The Jones Library has been around for almost 90 years. The North Amherst branch has been open for over 125 years. The South Amherst branch has also been around for a long time. All of them provide important services to this town. The services include the obvious ones of books and magazines, and it has developed over the years to include DVDs and CDs and now Kindles and Nooks and all of the other things that are part of the modern exchange of information. But it also provides places for people to see art at the Burnett Gallery. It provides places for children to gather and to play on Saturday mornings at music events, in the children's room, during the summer. There are any number of services that are provided through the library, and these are important to the town. They're important to the growth of the town and its children. All of these are important. I spend a fair amount of time bringing my grandchildren there. My wife borrows books on tape because that's how she gets to do that in her car. All of these are important, but it's also important to recognize that the library changes with the times. And that change is one of the things that we need to maintain and to encourage. The way in which that gets done is by allowing the libraries to evolve, and we do that in a variety of ways. The access that it provides to people who are learning English, to people who are job seekers, to people who want to simply enjoy their time off and find a break in their routines. All of these are important services that are provided through the libraries. A trustee is responsible for keeping it going. The primary responsibility is to hire and direct, not to direct, to manage the activities that go on around the library, and to maintain and ensure that there are funds available for doing that, and that is the things that we do. I have been lucky enough to have 6 months of experience. I filled a vacancy, and I hope to now spend the next 3 years doing the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we will continue with Mr. Pam and give several questions related to the library and then move to the school committee.
Okay.
So if any of you have any other questions for library trustee or for school committee, raise your hand and someone will pick it up. Mr. Pam, what improvements would you like to see in the physical plant of Jones Library or of the two branches in North and South Amherst?
There are a number. It would be nice if we didn't have to put out pails under the roof every once in a while. And that we are working on, and we are hoping that there will be funds to do those repairs in the near future. That will be coming, I think, to the town meeting in another month or so. But beyond that, there are lots of places where things could be arranged differently, and one of the priorities of the library right now is to really think through those kinds of issues. The state offers opportunities for renovations periodically, not frequently, but periodically. And we are now beginning to think through what kinds of changes might be appropriate. I think there ought to be better spaces for teenagers. I think we need to have more spaces where groups of people can work together. I think we do need some more computers. I think there's a great deal of need for the spaces for small children to be able to reach all of the books and to get to them and to enjoy them. And I think there's always a need for some updates to the materials that we're offering.
Thank you. Mr. Pam, what experience have you had in working with a small group or board and coming to joint decisions when different opinions are expressed or when conflicts arise?
I spent 30 years working for New York City government. I have some experience with that. A portion of that was spent actually at the equivalent of the board of directors of the city government, which involved the mayor, the controller, and the borough presidents, for those of you who are familiar with New York City. And I worked as staff to that organization. I've also been the reinvigorator of a high school alumni association. I have been the president of a couple of other organizations and staff to some as a volunteer. So I have a fair amount of experience with those kinds of issues.
A last question for you. You spoke to some extent of this, but this one directly asks, what do you see as the role of a library trustee vis-a-vis the library director? And you might speak to that particularly in light of past evidence.
Past history.
Past experience.
The trustees are responsible for the hiring of the library director. The library director is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day management of both staff and operations. The trustee's responsibility with respect to this doesn't end on the day that a librarian is hired, but there is a difference between seeing what is going on, and we expect and receive monthly reports from the library director on things that are going on, and that's important, and we ask questions, and that's something that one would expect and hope that a trustee would do. Beyond that, there are times when the real question has to do with future directions, not what's happening day to day, but where should the library be going in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years, and that's really where the trustee's role becomes much more important.
Thank you. We have lots more questions for the school committee, perhaps not surprisingly, not to downplay your role, Mr. Pam, but there are lots of issues about the school committee, and we probably can't get through all of these questions. We do limit you to 1.5 minutes each, but we will start with Ms. Trapphagen. What is your opinion of the start time change proposal made by those who requested a later opening time for the high school students?
Well, I think that there was a problem in terms of sports and the impact on sports, and that was why the school committee didn't move it forward. So I do think, though, it is still a live issue, that there's many studies that have been shown that the way that adolescents' body clocks actually move, that they don't do as well in the early morning, and they would do better having a later start time. So I don't know in terms of if we can investigate what would the impacts be on sports, how many children or young people does that really affect, and what kind of solutions that we can put in place for those that would be affected, so we could still revisit the issue for the general school population. I hope we do that.
Mr. Hood, same question.
Yeah, it was really tough. I know I wanted to move the start time later because clearly it's shown to be helpful, but there was no good alternative that would work. And it's mainly to do with the fact that the same buses do the elementary kids as do the secondary kids, and there's just no time frame that didn't really interfere with sports badly on one end or be too early for the elementary kids on the other end. So, so I voted against it in the end, just because there just wasn't a good option. I don't know whether studying it further will help because it was studied to death, but maybe some solution was out there that wasn't thought of. So if there is, we'd certainly vote for it if there was a better solution.
Mr. Hood, we'll start with you on this one. We all agree that students with special needs should have appropriate support, but what will you do to support and encourage high-achieving students and to keep them in the public system?
I think, yeah, I still definitely hear complaints from parents who don't feel like their kids are challenged enough, and that, you know, they'll go to the teacher and don't feel like they get what they need for their kid or whatever. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have an inconsistency from school to school and classroom to classroom in the way we do things. And I think that's because we didn't really have a curriculum director for years, you know, overseeing that kind of thing. So we have a curriculum director now, and I feel that she's going to help fix this situation, and I'm looking for improvement in the future on that.
Ms. Traphagen, same question.
Also a question that I'm familiar with, having children in the schools as well. And I think that one of the things that's happened over the past couple of years is a move toward increased teacher collaboration and teachers creating communities of practice, so that although teaching used to be kind of a solo effort much of the day, that paradigm is really shifting, and I think that that is happening in Amherst too, where because teachers are working in communities of practice, they can learn from each other and they can really figure out how to do this thing that we call differentiation of instruction, which is something that's easy to say and very, very difficult to do when you have a full classroom. And so I think the more teachers collaborate and the more teachers access each other and opportunities to improve their practice, the better that they will actually be able to meet the needs, the differing needs of all the students in their classroom.
Thank you. Ms. Traphagen, would you comment on the relative importance or the importance of physical education and music and art in the schools?
Yeah, that's what actually sparked me to get involved in this whole thing, is that with the recent budget, there was a cut to the specials teachers, and I sat down and wrote a letter about it to the Gazette, because it was just, wouldn't leave my head for many days, and I had to put down what I thought. I think that the music and art are really some of the most important experiences that our children have in the schools. And we have unbelievably talented professionals all across the system that are doing that. I think that not only the actual experience that the children get when they're doing the music and art, but also these teachers' ability to work with the classroom teachers to integrate and enrich the curricula in many different ways that makes it accessible to students who have all sorts of different learning styles is very, very important, and I think it's something that we need to invest in and recognize and encourage.
Mr. Hood.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is that the arts also have the effect of having kids want to go to school. So it pulls in kids and interests kids that might not otherwise be interested in going to school and gets them excited about school, which in turn can spill over into other subjects like math and reading and other, those subjects.
Okay, Mr. Hood, do you think that the administrative costs in the schools are too high? And if so, how could we trim them?
If they're too high, it would be because of salary levels, not because of number of people. I just don't agree at all that we have too many administrators. If anything, it's been too few. I mentioned curriculum director, not having one before. In order to have, a good organization, you have to have good management, and I actually prefer to use the word management than administration because that's what it is. So, again, our costs are a little bit higher than elsewhere, but I don't think it's because of the number of people. If you go to the central office and just walk around and see what people do, they're doing a lot with not that many people.
Ms. Traphagen?
Yeah, I would agree with Rick. There are so many challenges that are facing the school system. I was mentioning before the integration of Common Core standards. Science standards will be coming up. The changing demographics, which Rick mentioned the changing needs of the students, and that all really adequately meeting those challenges cannot be left to the individual teachers. There has to be the management and the support and the opportunity for that work of how those challenges are going to be met to take place out of the classroom so that teachers can actually focus on the children and the skills that they have in teaching the children and the administration supporting the teachers.
I have a big pile of questions here for you folks. Ms. Traphagen, it's your turn to go first. What is your position on the targets or the caps for class size, particularly in the elementary schools, and how should they be determined and how should they be applied?
Well, first of all, I'd have to say I don't know what the current target class size for elementary even is.
Yeah, they're published off the top of my head. They're in the 18 to 20 range, and it's lower for for grade 1 than for grade 6, but it's in 18 to 20 range.
Right. So I do know that the research on class size shows that it makes a difference in the lower grades, and I mean, I certainly believe that from my point of view as a parent. And so I think that that's something that's extremely important. I think the research also shows that class size is less important in the higher grades, and that teacher effectiveness is more important. And so I do believe that class size limits in the elementary grades are important.
Mr. Hood?
Well, I believe in the smallest class size that we can, afford. But if you talk to teachers, they'll say it matters a lot what the composition of the class is. So that matters. Another thing that's tricky is that since each of the elementary schools have either 2 or 3 classes in each grade, it's tricky because you might have, 3 classes of 20 each, or it makes it hard to have exactly the right size because juggling the numbers gets to be tough. So it's not easy to have the exact right number in every class, but really we don't have any firm caps or anything like that. We just have targets, but they get adjusted up and down depending on that particular cohort of kids and also the total number in a particular grade.
Thank you. Mr. Hood, to start, since candidates who are elected to the Amherst School Committee are also members of the Regional Committee, you're offering to spend a considerable amount of time attending meetings and reading the materials given to board members. How is your current schedule of commitments going to accommodate the time requirement needed to fulfill those obligations?
I honestly don't find the time requirement that difficult unless you're the chair, and if you're the chair, it's very difficult. So I'll handle it by not being chair.
Ms. Traphagen?
I think I'll just second what Rick said because I have no intention of being chair.
Let's see. Since one of the main tasks, it goes to you first, Ms. Traphagen, one of the main tasks of the non-professional board member is to evaluate the advice given to you by a school superintendent. What experience have you had in dealing with such issues, and what makes you a good candidate to respond to the advice given to you by major staff professionals?
That's an interesting question. Well, I think that what I do professionally is I have a consulting practice where I have a lot of clients, many foundations, some local governments, nonprofits, some schools, and my specialty is around project management, facilitation, organizational development, strategic planning, on many different issues having to do with education. And in doing that, I spend a lot of my time listening to a lot of different people, synthesizing the information that I hear, trying to make some sense out of it, and then often presenting it back to a group of the same people or different people to make to take action, to create recommendations on a number of different things. And I think my ability to listen with an open mind is really served me well in my job, and I think it would serve me well on the committee too.
Mr. Hood?
Would you mind repeating the question? I'm not sure.
The question essentially is if a professional like the school superintendent or one of the other professionals is giving you advice, how do you measure that advice and how do you respond to it? How do you decide whether the advice is the appropriate advice or the correct advice?
I'm not sure I get advice from school employees, if that's what that meant, but,
The superintendent?
well, we tend to give her advice. But, you know, I don't know, I guess I just listen to whatever people say, take it in and, you know, process it and try to be as rational as possible when getting advice from anybody. Sorry, I don't have a better answer than that.
Okay, Mr. Hood, we'll have one last question for each of the school committee people, and I'm kind of combining two questions here. What is your main concern about our school, and as a school committee member, how do you help to address that problem?
I think my main concern is for low-income elementary kids. If you look at our test scores and other measures, that's where we're hurting the most. We're actually declining and not going up. Everywhere else, it's not that bad. How we fix that, one thing we're going to be doing this year is to try to reach out more to low-income families to make them more part of the education of their kids. You know, more affluent. I don't want to broad brush low-income families because they're all different, but in general, you know, more affluent families are more involved with their kids' education than low-income families. So we're reaching out to them with a thing called Family University and having them come to meetings with their kids in the school. And we're also hiring 2 people next year to actually go into the homes of low-income families and help them understand what their kids are doing in class and that kind of thing. That's been successful in Brookline, and we're trying to imitate a program called Steps to Success that they've done there that's been pretty effective.
Thank you. Ms. Trapphagen, major concern, and how will you address it?
I think one of the things that's a foundation for some of the things that Rick was just talking about is student engagement. I think student engagement is the foundation for academic success and overall developmental success for young people. So are our children engaged as much as they possibly can be in their school experience? And what are the components that make up that engagement? And it's great teaching, and it's also school culture, and it's also understanding that children are very different. They learn in very different ways. And so are we providing all of the different pedagogies that can actually engage them? Because they're all able to do the work. We should have high expectations for them, but we should understand that if they're not engaged, they're not going to be able to do the work. And so that's what I really would like to work on, is to understand more about how we're doing that in our schools and how to do that better.
Thank you. That concludes our program this evening. I want to thank all of the candidates, both in the first panel and in the second, for coming, the audience, Amherst Media, for making this night very special. I want to thank Deanna Pearlstein for wonderful refreshments. If you didn't get here at 7 o'clock, you didn't get any good brownies. You'll learn next time. Tonight's forum will be rebroadcast multiple times on Channel 17 prior to the town election. I'd remind you that town elections are April 9th. You can check the schedule for the Channel 17 on amherstmedia.org. Watch for the League's annual guide to the election, to the local election, in this week's April 5th Amherst Bulletin. It will include statements both from the townwide office candidates who you heard from tonight, as well as from candidates running for town meeting. And you might pay attention to the fact that although there are several precincts where there are more candidates running than there are seats available, so you will have to make some choices, there are some precincts where there are not enough candidates running for town meeting. And if you are interested in participating in town meeting, you can be elected as a write-in person. So keep it in mind if you want to be involved in town meeting. Town elections are Tuesday, April 9th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. We have a number of other elections coming up this spring. There is a primary, a Democratic and Republican primary for Senate is April 30th, and the Senate general election for the open seat caused by Senator Kerry's being appointed to Secretary of State, that election will be held June 25th. So we do have a busy election season coming up. Please watch live election coverage for the town election, again on April 9th, which is co-sponsored by the League and by the Amherst Media and is shown at Channel 17 beginning at 8 p.m. on April 9th. And at that point, all the candidates get to see when they win. Thank you all for coming, and good night.